Hey everybody, thanks so much for understanding. Sorry about the confusion with the time of the video. There's so many great things about living out here in rural Louisiana, but then sometimes when technology doesn't work the way you expect it to, it can cause some frustration. So I'm gonna wait just a minute or so to see if anybody wants to jump on before I get started. I'll give it a few more seconds. Okay, let me go ahead and just jump in. Shoot. Okay. All right, guys, today I'm continuing the series that I've been doing on questions that I most frequently ask by like friends, family, clients. Today's a little bit different format than before because it's a broader topic. And so what I'm going to be discussing today is just natural ways to support various concerns that men have regarding their health. For those of you who don't know me personally, I'm the only woman in my house. I've been married for 26 years and I have 3 sons. I also have a really close relationship with both my dad and my brother, so I spend a great deal of time around men. And yet, despite all of that and the fact that I'm an herbalist and an integrative practitioner, I find that men, even the ones in my life, are still a little bit hesitant. They aren't really as skeptical about natural and herbal remedies as stereotypes would suggest. Instead, what I find is they're just more hesitant to ask for help. Yes, the men in my life, they have no problems complaining, like if something hurts or they're sore or they're tired or something like that. But I just find that they're hesitant to ask or even accept help. Part of that, I think, I'm not a man, so can't speak fully for everybody, but it's due to the whole kind of like manliness thing. Women generally are kind of okay about talking about feelings or going a little bit deeper to uncover like a cause, that sort of stuff. Men, for the most part, don't go get that route. They're much more problem efficiency, oriented. I know you guys have all heard the stories, the guy who tells a story about finishing a football game with his shoulder nearly out of socket, or the man that drove himself to the hospital with broken legs or severe cuts to his body. There's a tendency in our society to value this toughness. And so asking for help for any kind of chronic symptom or the idea of discussing things like a lack of virility or just a lack of overall vitality is something that's seen that, real men are supposed to avoid, right? And men being wired to need to solve problems and to do that efficiently are much more inclined to just take a couple of aspirin and cover up a symptom rather than to sit and analyze, to go deeper into a physical symptom. And because of the need for efficiency, it also makes them less open to the idea of something that, might take a couple of weeks for it to truly see a result. They're much more, result-oriented. Now, modern medicine, their intervention, of course, offers amazing, like crisis intervention methods, techniques, and procedures. But herbal medicine, on the other hand, is gentler. It's more focused on prevention and encourages self-care and supports the body to heal itself. And so I understand that perceived lack of efficiency or the lack of that quick fix makes a lot of men just not necessarily open to the idea of more natural or herbal remedies. Since I started studying herbalism about 20 years ago until now, I am noticing, though, an uptick in interest in men for certain specific things. With more awareness about possible side effects of the more intense chemical medications, I noticed an increase in interest for certain conditions like high blood pressure, back and joint pain, a desire for, increased energy overall. So that is a positive note, and so that's kind of why I decided to speak on this today, because I'm getting questions from wives, girlfriends, and even some men themselves are stopping in and like, look, I'm on blood pressure medicine, but my blood pressure isn't really high. What can I do naturally to try to lower it? Instead of, having to continue to take something that they don't necessarily feel they have to do or don't want to take for the long term. So there is no way that I can cover possibly every herb for every condition. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of speak briefly about the most common ones that I use with my clients now. But before I get into specific herbs, I want to talk about just real quickly preparations. Preparations are how the herb is prepared for you to be able to use. Infusions or tea, most people call it tea, is something that just in my experience doesn't appeal a whole lot to men, especially my clients that are over 35. It seems like there's a sort of a stigma associated with tea-related preparations, that they're either kind of, they associate them with women or they associate it with the elderly. Now, I have noticed there is an interest and a willingness to use teas among younger clients, especially ones that are kind of more adventurous in their flavors, or kind of a more leaning on artistic, excuse me. And so one of the first things that I have to explain, or not have to, that I do explain to my male clients, is that you don't have to take a tea. The common thing that I tell everyone is that it doesn't matter. It can be the most potent herb on the planet, but it's not going to do you any good if you're not willing to take it. And so often my discussions, revolve around that not all herbal medicine is tea. There's many different preparations, and I like to actually work with my clients so I can personalize even some of the flavor profiles, and especially just a method that they're actually going to take, because it's not going to do you any good if you don't use it, right? So one of the alternatives that I use is a decoction. It's a much more concentrated, it's still a liquid, kind of like a tea would be, but the herbs are either steamed or boiled for a much longer time, and on those preparations I can actually pre-sweeten them too. They're more convenient for a lot of men because when they take the formula, it's almost like a dose like you would a cough syrup or something like that. It's just a small amount of medicine you can take. You leave it in the fridge. It's really easy. It doesn't require as much time as the tea, and it's it's a more concentrated formula, so it tends to be easier for them to take. Often you can also get single herbs or simple herbal formulas in like capsule form. This is something most people are pretty comfortable using because it's more like taking a vitamin or whatever medicine they've been prescribed in the past. The drawback of capsules, however, is that if you have a sensitive digestive system, it can kind of cause problems or make those problems worse. And then also, most of my clients have a tendency to take them only for a little while and stop, or to not take them consistently at all. They might take them for a day or two and then quit. And so you don't really ever get the full effect as you would on a more liquid preparation. One of the most successful preparations of the formulas that I use with men are these tinctures. For those of you who don't know what a tincture is, it's a really highly concentrated herbal formula. You use either mainly alcohol or glycerin to like extract the chemicals and the medicinal properties from the herbs in that. This is kind of what it looks like. I hope you can see it. They're in bottles like this. And I find that people who use tinctures tend to take them more regularly and for longer periods of time. You just use like a little small dropper full like this, so it doesn't just upset your digestive system. You absorb it more quickly than you would capsules or anything else. And it can be diluted in water or anything else you take on a regular basis. Like my husband's, his 2 daily herbs, he uses turmeric and ashwagandha, and he just takes a dropper full of each, puts it in his cup of coffee, and then he's good for the day. Doesn't even have to think about it further than that. So if your hesitancy to use more natural remedies or herbal medicines like that is the form that you'd have to take them, trust me, it can be customized and fixed to whatever preferences you have. Now let's talk about some particular herbs. I'm just going to go briefly through some of the herbs. I don't want to sound like an encyclopedia or a grocery list and just list off a bunch of things, but for time's sake too, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time going into one particular herb. So I'm going to just kind of go briefly what each one's used for and hit just the highlights of what I see in my practice. One of my favorite all-around herbs is ashwagandha. It's a root, and it was originally and traditionally used in Ayurvedic medicine in India. And the name of it means stamina of the horse. It works by clearing out like the stress hormones that you produce in your body more quickly. So over a long period of time, you end up with more energy, you sleep better, you're able to manage your stress better. It's even shown effective, like if you have stress-related blood pressure, it can actually lower your blood pressure on that respect too. So it's a very good all-around herb that I use extensively. An herb that's been studied extensively if you have a history or a concern about prostate health is saw palmetto. It's very effective on maintaining those your levels in the inflammation and just supports the function of the prostate. And so it tends to be almost like a preventative as well as like a maintenance in your prostate health. The liver is a hugely important organ analyzed way more than I think we give it credit for, and it affects almost all of our body systems. And so an herb that's used widely for just for liver health is milk thistle. This one's especially great for anyone who used to use or still does use alcohol. Hawthorn berries are really good for circulatory concerns. It supports the health of your blood vessels and has been shown to help with cardiovascular issues. There's some other many different kinds of options when it comes to reproductive health or like a virility issues, and a lot of it depends on the underlying cause. But for some people, there's things like horny goatweed, ginger, and garlic have been proven effective, especially if it's a blood flow problem or an inflammation issue. If you need help like increasing your testosterone levels or maintaining them, some of the most common herbs for that are nettle root and tribulus. There's a couple others, again, depending on your current situation, of course, because not everything works for everybody in the same degree. But those are just kind of some highlights. Now, if you know anyone who's prone to anxiety, I find that with men's metabolisms, there's a combination of hops, California poppy, and passion flower work really well to calm the central nervous system, especially if your brain's running really, really fast. It's can also be used to help you sleep at night, but like if you end up with anxiety during the middle of the day and you want to take a tincture or something like that, or even drink a tea, it's effective, and they hit your system pretty quickly. So most men find that a little more satisfying than waiting a while for something to get in. Now, depression, St. John's wort, milky oats, and lemon balm, if you combine them, have been shown to be effective for depression, but that you have to be really careful with. Just make sure you speak with your doctor first, or double check to make sure that any prescription medication you're on, it can interact with. St. John's wort can really interfere with prescription antidepressants. So if you want to use an herbal formula of some kind for depression, that's great. Just make sure you tell your doctor and then double check to make sure that there's no interactions with anything you're currently taking. One that was in the news extensively not long ago, and I think pretty much still is turmeric. It's very, very good. It helps with just body inflammation and joint pain. Like I said earlier, that's what my husband takes pretty much every day. He's been in the military for almost 32 years and has some shoulder and feet issues, and he really loves the turmeric. Now, if you're interested in increasing your concentration, I have a formula that uses ginseng, ginkgo, and rosemary. It's a variation of what I use for my ADHD clients, but it can really help adults with concentration issues too, especially if you have a tendency for that brain fog in the afternoons and you don't necessarily want to chug a bunch of caffeine. So there's no way to cover every situation or every herb for everybody. So I'm just going to stop here. I don't want to sound like I'm just rattling off a bunch of stuff. Just remember that once you recognize there's a problem, and if you're willing to ask questions, there are so many different herbs and herbal preparations that can suit your lifestyle or your desires, or just something you're going to take consistently. So don't be turned off by the idea that if you're going to take a herb, it has to be a tea and it's going to have to be 6 times a day, or you're going to have to take 9 different tablets. It's really not necessary. We can customize the preparation as well as the content to satisfy each thing, and so you're not going to be eating a bunch of grass or constantly drinking tea. So just keep in mind about that, and so don't get turned off just because it's out there. I promise that there's a way to make it work for you. Now next week, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up for today. Next week, I'm doing a big topic. It's going to be on June 8th, and it's going to be anxiety. For that one, I'm going to be back to my regular format of exploring, what, why, and how of managing your anxiety naturally. It's likely to be a little bit longer than my previous videos just because it's such a really big topic. Now my plan now is to open a sort of kind of question and answer poll a few days before that video, just to make sure that I can address as many questions as I can during the video without trying to go too terribly long. So be on the lookout for that. And as always, text me, call, leave a message, write questions below in the comments, anything you need, and I'll be more than happy to respond. Thank you guys, and have a good evening. Or afternoon, whatever today is. Bye.